Welcome to the Classic Soap Operas podcast.
Great to be here.
Today, we're taking a real deep dive into a true titan of the genre, As the World Turns.
Oh, ATWT. Absolutely massive.
For over 5 decades, it kept millions glued to their screens, following the lives and loves in Oakdale, Illinois.
Yeah, Oakdale felt like a real place to so many people.
We've pulled together a whole collection of insights covering its incredible run, the unforgettable characters, some truly astonishing moments,
And there were definitely some of those.
and its lasting footprint on TV history. Our mission here is to explore what exactly made this show so special.
And understand its evolution, right, and its unique place.
Exactly. We want to figure out its spot in the story of the small screen.
It's a journey through a massive amount of television history, really. We're looking at a show that wasn't just popular, it defined a certain era of daytime drama.
So get ready for some deep cuts, maybe some surprising facts.
And a real look at the heart of Oakdale. It should be fun.
Okay, let's jump right in. Start at the very beginning. As the World Turns, or ATWT as well, fans often called it.
Yeah, ATWT.
Premiered on CBS on April 2, 1956.
Right.
Now, this wasn't just another show launching. It was part of a quiet revolution in daytime.
Absolutely. What made ATWT and its sister show, The Edge of Night, which premiered the same day.
Oh, same day. Interesting.
Yeah, same day. What made them so groundbreaking was their length. Before April 2, 1956, every single television serial was only 15 minutes long.
15 minutes. Wow.
Right. ATWT and The Edge of Night debuted as half-hour programs.
So they doubled the time.
Exactly. Doubling the available time for storytelling sounds simple now, maybe, but it profoundly changed the potential for character depth, plot complexity, pacing in daytime TV.
Makes sense. More room to breathe.
It allowed for more layers, more relationships to follow at the same time, and a slightly less frantic pace than the quarter-hour format often demanded.
But that's a fundamental shift in the medium itself, really. It must have signaled a new ambition for daytime drama.
It really did.
Now, the information we have indicates the initial reception wasn't universally ecstatic.
That's right. Apparently, viewers were a bit hesitant or maybe just getting used to the longer format at first. The initial reaction wasn't overwhelming, but that indifference, it didn't last long at all. We see that the ratings picked up significantly in its second year. Audiences started to connect.
Yeah, they found the characters, the story.
Exactly. Started to get invested in that longer format.
And once it found its footing, it really took off.
It didn't just take off, it dominated. By the fall of 1958, just 2 years in, ATWT hit the top spot in the daytime Nielsen ratings.
Wow, #1 already.
And from 1959 onwards, it went on this astonishing streak of weekly ratings wins that lasted for over 12 years.
12 years, week after week.
Think about that week after week, month after month, for over a decade. It was the most watched show in its category.
That kind of sustained popularity is almost unheard of today.
It truly is. At its height, roughly between 1958 and, say, 1978, it wasn't just #1, it was a cultural phenomenon in daytime.
A phenomenon, yeah.
Estimates suggest it was attracting around 10 million viewers every single day.
10 million daily.
Daily. That's a significant portion of the American population tuning in every day to catch up on Oakdale. That level of consistent, dedicated viewership powered the show for decades.
10 million viewers daily is just staggering. And the show itself wasn't frozen in time during this period of incredible dominance. It evolved, right, with technology and network strategy.
Exactly. Like all long-running shows, it had to adapt. A key visual evolution happened on August 21st, 1967.
Okay, what was that?
That's when the show transitioned from black and white to color
Oh,
broadcasting.
color. Big change.
Huge change. It sounds like a simple technical upgrade now, but imagine tuning in one day and suddenly seeing Oakdale in full color after years of watching it in shades of gray. It brought a new richness, sets, costumes, even the actors' appearances.
A whole new dimension for the audience, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the show also grew, literally, expanding its runtime.
Yes. Building on that initial groundbreaking half hour, ATWT expanded to a full hour-long format starting on December 1st, 1975.
From 30 minutes to 60.
Right. And this timing is notable because it happened just as The Edge of Night, its original 30-minute sibling, moved over to ABC.
Ah.
So ATWT essentially took over that coveted full-hour block on CBS, cementing its position as a cornerstone of their daytime lineup for the next, 35 years?
Wow.
That expansion must have given the writers even more freedom to delve into intricate plots and develop characters over longer arcs.
Yeah, that additional time really allowed the world of Oakdale to become even more expansive. And speaking of that world, one of the most important elements that kept audiences hooked, based on everything we looked at, was its deep commitment to multi-generational storytelling.
This was absolutely central to its identity, particularly after certain creative shifts brought it kind of back to its roots. The show built itself around core families whose lives intersected and whose histories spanned decades on screen.
The Hughes family is the prime example here, right?
Yeah.
They were really reestablished as the show's central clan in the mid-1980s.
They were the moral compass, often representing traditional, stable family values against the backdrop of Oakdale's sometimes chaotic drama. Bob Hughes, played for decades by the remarkable Don Hastings.
Incredible tenure.
And Kim Sullivan, played by Catherine Hayes, they became the standard for a stable, enduring couple in the soap opera world.
The Rock of Oakdale, maybe?
Sort of, yeah. And what's fascinating about Catherine Hayes is that she was originally hired for just 6 months to play Kim.
Only 6 months.
Yeah, but her character and her portrayal, it just resonated so strongly with the audience that she became incredibly popular and ended up staying with the show from 1972 until its final episode in 2010.
Wow, that's amazing.
That made her the 4th longest-serving cast member in ATWT history.
That unplanned longevity speaks volumes about her connection with the viewers. And that kind of dedication wasn't unique. Many actors became nationally recognized faces simply through their decades on ATWT.
Oh, absolutely. The heart of the Hughes family was the matriarch, Nancy Hughes, played by Helen Wagner. Her place in television history is just unparalleled.
Skipped the first line, didn't she?
She uttered the very first line of the series on that premiere day in 1956. "Good morning, dear." And she went on to play Nancy for over 50 years.
50 years.
Making it the longest-running character portrayed by a single actor in the history of serialized television ever.
That's incredible. Nancy was. She was the constant.
She was this unwavering figure of traditional values, offering comfort and wisdom, and sometimes, a little well-meaning interference to her family and the audience. Helen Wagner's career wasn't just ATWT, though. She had a background in radio and earlier TV soaps. She made her final appearance on the show in April 2010, just weeks before she passed away in May. And the show handled her passing really gracefully, having the characters remember her life in later episodes.
What an extraordinary legacy for Helen Wagner and for the show. And her on-screen husband, Bob Hughes, played by Don Hastings, another cornerstone, right? Similarly recognized for his incredible tenure.
Don Hastings was right there with her in terms of longevity and importance. And then there was Eileen Fulton,
Lisa.
the legendary Lisa Miller. Lisa was described as both the longest-running antagonist and one of the longest-serving actors. Lisa was simply iconic.
Definitely iconic.
She was tempestuous, glamorous, often married, I think 6 times.
6, yeah.
And always generating drama. She was the perfect counterpoint to the stability of the Hugheses. Don Hastings and Eileen Fulton were so fundamental, they actually had a special episode dedicated to celebrating their 40 years on ATWT back in 2000.
That's fantastic. And Don McLaughlin, who played Chris Hughes, he was another core member of that early cast who stayed for a very long time, became a nationally known face.
Yes, another bedrock presence from the start. And the show's reliance on characters with established careers, like doctors and lawyers, that wasn't just window dressing, was it?
No, it became a foundational trope for the genre, didn't it? Influencing other soaps.
Yeah, think about characters like Dr. John Dixon, played by Larry Brigman. He started as, somewhat villainous.
Definitely had his moments.
But evolved over decades and won multiple Emmys for his work. Or the Stewart family, centered around figures like Dr. David Stewart, played for 20 years by Henderson Forsyth.
Right.
And Benjamin Hendrickson, who played Chief Detective Hal Munson, he provided that crucial link to the crime and mystery plots that were also a staple.
The depth of the cast over the years is just remarkable. Beyond those core multi-decade players, the material we looked at highlights others who left their mark too.
Definitely. Santos Ortega, who played Pa Hughes, he had this distinguished radio career, even voiced The Shadow.
No kidding, The Shadow.
Yeah. And William Johnstone, who played Judge James T. Lowell, he also voiced The Shadow after Orson Welles.
Wow, connection there.
William LaMessina played lawyer Ambrose Bingham for several years. Robert Horton brought a different kind of drama as the wealthy, controlling Whit McCall. Roscoe Bourne had minor roles early, but he's a name recognized from later soap work.
I know that name.
Louis Zorich, who later played Paul Buckman's dad on Mad About You.
Oh, yeah?
He appeared briefly. Lisa Loring, the original Wednesday Addams.
Wednesday Addams was on ATWT.
Had a notable 3-year run as a sort of vampish character. Mary Linda Rapley played the attorney Maggie Crawford, central to a controversial trial storyline we should probably get into.
Okay, we'll circle back to that.
And John Riley, who played Dr. Dan Stewart in the mid-'70s, went on to a massive career on General Hospital.
Wow, Sean Donnelly, yeah.
It just shows the kind of talent that passed through Oakdale, you know? Some staying, some moving on to other iconic roles.
That roster truly underscores the show's importance as a training ground and a long-term home for actors. And part of what made those actors and characters so compelling was how ATWT often mirrored real-life events and wasn't afraid to be groundbreaking in tackling social issues.
This is where it really started to connect the fictional world of Oakdale to the realities viewers were living. Early on, the show demonstrated a willingness to delve into challenging topics. For instance, the information mentions it tackled a woman's experience with terminal illness.
Right.
At a time when such difficult subjects were rarely depicted with that kind of depth on daytime television, it signaled that this wasn't just escapism, it could also hold a mirror up to life.
And this connection to the real world led to what is arguably one of the most unforgettable, unplanned, and frankly kind of chilling moments in the history of live television that directly involved As the World Turned.
Oh, yes. This is where the real world dramatically intersected with the fictional. On Friday, November 22, 1963, a live telecast of As the World Turns was interrupted by a CBS News bulletin.
The JFK assassination.
Exactly. The iconic voice viewers heard was Walter Cronkite announcing the shooting of President Kennedy in Dallas.
Just imagine being a viewer in 1963, glued to your daily cereal, and suddenly that image of the CBS News desk appears, and you hear Cronkite deliver that devastating news live.
The account of that moment is fascinating and really shows the unique nature of live broadcasting back then. Cronkite's bulletin broke in while the show was in progress. The cast, performing live in New York,
Had no idea.
initially completely unaware of what was happening outside the studio, Don Hastings, playing Bob Hughes, was preparing for a scene with Henderson Forsyth, Dr. David Stewart. Just before their cue, Hastings overheard a cameraman on his headset talking to the control room, bewildered, saying something like, "Don't tell the actors what, the president's been shot."
Oh my God. So the actors had to immediately step into their scene, performing dialogue, while this earth-shattering news was breaking over the network, and while they might have just heard hints of it themselves.
Exactly. And CBS actually returned to the show mid-scene after that initial bulletin.
Really? They went back.
Briefly. That brief return ended up being the last regular program viewers saw on television that day. During the commercial break that followed, the CBS News bulletin slide reappeared, and Cronkite continued reporting audio-only updates until CBS News was ready to switch to full video coverage from Dallas.
So the cast only found out afterwards.
They only learned the full extent of the tragedy after they finished the live episode and came off the air.
Wow. Helen Wagner, Nancy Hughes. She famously referred to that specific, jarring interruption by Cronkite as her dubious claim to fame.
Yeah, it's a powerful, visceral reminder of when television was live and how a national tragedy could directly break into the carefully constructed world of a show, impacting both the production and the viewer simultaneously.
It really puts into perspective the show's place in people's daily lives at the time. It wasn't just entertainment, it was part of the shared experience, right?
Yeah. To the extent that a national crisis literally stopped the world of Oakdale for a moment, it highlights the professionalism required of those actors, too, to continue performing under such circumstances, whether they fully understood the gravity or not.
Absolutely. A show with such a long history, adapting to changing times and enduring moments like that, must have had a multitude of creative minds guiding its stories over the decades.
Oh, for sure. The head writer position is particularly influential in soap operas, shaping the direction, the tone, the specific storylines. And we see a significant number of influential writers cycle through ATWT during its run.
Starting, of course, with the legend herself.
Yes, Verna Phillips, the absolute pioneer of the genre. Others who held the crucial head writer role included names like William J. Bell.
Big name. YNR, BMB.
Exactly. He'd go on to create those. Robert Soderbergh, Edith Summer, Cynthia Benjamin, and Susan Betzow Horgan also steered the ship at various times. And the dynamic duo, Bridget and Jerome Dobson, they left their mark.
Now, the material highlights Douglas Marland as particularly significant when he arrived in the mid-1980s.
Marland was a huge get. He was already a celebrated daytime Emmy-winning writer known for his impactful work on shows like Another World and Guiding Light.
Right.
When he came to ATWT in 1985, he's widely credited with revitalizing the show. His philosophy was about getting the show back to its roots, focusing on the core families and character-driven drama.
But not just staying in the past.
Exactly, while simultaneously moving it forward with fresh storylines and relationships. He was instrumental in restoring the Hughes family to prominence and creating iconic characters like the Snyder family.
Ah, the Snyders. We'll get to them.
His arrival is seen as a real turning point that helped solidify the show's identity in a changing daytime landscape.
And speaking of Bridget and Jerome Dobson, they're specifically linked to a notable, maybe somewhat controversial storyline.
Yes, they wrote the marital rape storyline involving John Dixon and Dee Stewart back in 1981. What's interesting here is the note that this storyline was essentially a knockoff of a highly successful marital rape story they had previously written for Guiding Light.
Huh. Reusing a theme.
It shows how head writers, or teams like the Dobsons, sometimes reused or adapted successful themes or dramatic situations across different shows they worked on, leveraging what they knew resonated, even if the execution differed.
It also hints at the creative pressures, maybe.
Yeah.
Or just efficiency in the genre. The material also points out shifts in creative direction that weren't always universally embraced by the loyal viewers.
That's a common challenge for any show with this kind of longevity, right? How do you stay fresh while honoring your history and core audience? Producer Mary Alice Bunham, who was with the show from 81 to 84, put a strong emphasis on youth storylines, aiming to attract a younger demographic. This approach, while understandable from a business perspective, sometimes came at the expense of focusing on the established, beloved core families.
Which didn't sit well with everyone.
Some longtime fans found it dispiriting, yeah.
And it sounds like that shift even caused some friction with the veterans.
It did. The material mentions this focus on youth storylines angered Eileen Fulton, Lisa Miller, to the point that she briefly left the show.
Wow, she quit over it.
Briefly. That tells you the strength of the feeling among those deeply invested in the show's traditional identity. It shows that tension between evolving to stay relevant and maintaining the elements that built that massive audience in the first place.
Definitely a balancing act. And in the later years, the show's tone shifted again, didn't it?
Yes, particularly in the 2000s, there was a noticeable move towards more satire and sometimes, over-the-top humor leaning into camp.
Vampy soaps, yeah.
This shift is noted as being influenced in part by newer shows like NBC's Passions, which had successfully cultivated a younger audience with its deliberately outrageous style.
Right, Passions was something else.
An example given is after the Alec Wallace murder mystery was resolved, revealing young heroine Georgia as the killer, which was a surprising twist in itself.
Georgia, okay.
But at the subsequent wedding reception, instead of pure drama, a moment of high camp occurred when Margot pushed the resident schemer Emily Stewart's face right into the wedding cake.
Face in the cake. Classic.
Apparently, the writers had initially planned for Emily to be the killer, but were overruled by producers, and the cake pushing became a kind of release valve and a sign of the show's later embrace of campy humor.
It reflects the challenges of navigating different network directives and genre trends over 5 decades. And across those years and creative shifts, navigating everything from live TV to changing tones, ATWT delivered countless memorable stories. Let's delve into some of the specific plot lines that really stood out or broke ground.
Okay. We can start with the early, seemingly simple family dynamics that resonated so deeply. Within the Hughes family, you had that relatable conflict between Chris and Nancy debating whether his elderly father, Pat Hughes, should live with them.
Very real-life stuff.
And Nancy, the matriarch, she was also known for interfering in her sons' lives, which felt very real to many viewers. And her struggle to come to terms with the death of her unseen daughter, Susan, had these long-lasting emotional repercussions within the family, particularly making her other daughter, Penny, feel kind of inadequate.
Ugh. Penny Hughes. Nancy's daughter. She had several significant storylines herself, didn't she? Including a romance the material describes in rather dramatic terms.
Her romance with Jeff Baker was classic soap opera. They eloped, but Nancy insisted it be annulled.
Nancy strikes again.
Highlighting the matriarch's strong influence. Later, a car crash involving Jeff and Penny was famously described as the automobile accident that shook the nation.
Wow, big deal.
Jeff was killed, and Penny suffered amnesia. This was a huge, impactful storyline. After the accident, Penny became pregnant but tragically lost the baby.
Oh, tough breaks for Penny.
Her life continued with dramatic turns, falling for Dr. Neil Wade, whose father turned out to be someone else entirely, marrying Neil only for him to die of an embolism, a brief marriage to Roy Maguire that was annulled, leaving Oakdale, returning with an adopted daughter looking for biological grandparents, and finally leaving after marrying Anton Cunningham. Penny's story is like a microcosm of the kind of heartbreak and resilience common in the show.
Absolutely. And Lisa Miller's life was just a whirlwind of drama, starting with her early relationship with Bob Hughes.
Lisa's journey was one of the most central and enduring. Her secret marriage to Bob Hughes was a major plot point in the early years. Their relationship was tumultuous, pregnancy ending in miscarriage, eventually divorce.
But she kept going.
But Lisa was defined by her romances and marriages. Her affair with Bruce Elliott was exposed when Penny told Bob, adding another layer of family drama. There was a dark storyline where Lisa was kidnapped and raped on a train.
Oh.
Although this happened during a brief period when a different actress played the role. Upon returning to Oakdale, after appearing in that primetime serial Our Private World, where she married someone else,
Complicated.
Lisa had an affair with Dr. Michael Shea. She got pregnant, tried to get him to marry her, revealed the affair to his wife, Claire, leading to their divorce, and was then blackmailed by Michael into marrying him, eventually giving birth to their son, Chucky.
Just relentless drama.
Lisa's string of marriages to Grant Coleman, Whitney McCall, others became legendary, cementing her status as Oakdale's much-married, always dramatic leading lady.
The show definitely wasn't afraid to go to dark places with its plots.
Not at all. The incident where Ellen Cole killed Franny Brennan by hitting her over the head is a stark example of the show depicting violent crime. The murder of Dr. Michael Shea, the one who married Lisa,
Brought him again.
was another complex storyline. Tom Hughes was wrongly convicted of the crime before it was revealed that Miss Thompson, whose daughter had committed suicide after Michael caused her financial ruin, was the actual killer.
Wow, tangled web.
This shows how the show could weave together personal drama, professional ethics, and criminal mystery. Earlier, after Claire Casson divorced Michael Shea, she actually stabbed him with a letter opener when she realized his offer to remarry her wasn't based on love.
Ouch.
Claire herself later died tragically, hit by a car after running into the road to apologize to Dan Stewart. Just layers upon layers of tragedy sometimes.
The show also built decades of narrative around core relationships that withstood immense challenges, like Bob Hughes' relationships with Jennifer Ryan and Kim Sullivan.
Bob's relationship with Jennifer Ryan was long and central, but ended tragically when she died in a car crash after recovering from a serious illness.
Always the car crashes.
Seems like it. His relationship with Kim Sullivan began while they were both in Florida. They met, became intimate, Kim got pregnant. Bob only discovered he was the father and revealed it to Kim after he returned to Oakdale and was hit by a car.
Hit by a car, of course.
While pushing Jennifer out of the way. Kim later had a stillborn child, though, interestingly, head writer Douglas Marland later retconned this.
The retcon.
Revealing they actually had a long-lost daughter named Sabrina who was exchanged at birth. A prime example of retroactive continuity, altering the past for a new story. Bob and Kim's wedding in April 1985 was a major event, solidifying them as the show's premier super couple.
ATWT is also remembered for pushing boundaries, sometimes controversially, with certain narratives.
The Dee Stewart and John Dixon rape trial in 1981 is a key example. Dee, played by Jacqueline Schultz, had intimacy with John, mistakenly believing him to be another man.
Okay.
When she realized it was John, she felt violated and pursued a legal case against him. What made this story particularly notable, beyond the sensitive subject matter, was that John hired Maggie Crawford, an attorney played by Mary Linda Rapley, to defend him.
A woman attorney defending him.
The information notes that this was seen as a scandal at the time. Maggie ultimately secured John's acquittal when Dee had to acknowledge on the witness stand past emotional issues and her lingering feelings for the man she mistook John for. John and Maggie were already lovers and continued their relationship after she arrived in Oakdale.
Complex stuff. The Snyder family, introduced by Douglas Marland, also became known for incredibly intricate, sometimes difficult relationships.
Yes, the material uses the term near incestuous to describe some of them, which highlights the complexity. The most confusing example involved Lillian Holden.
Lillian Holden. Big couple.
Played by John Hensley. The chemistry between Martha Byrne, who played Lily, and John Hensley was undeniable, making them super popular. However, if Lily's mother, Iva, was biologically Holden's sister, that would make Holden Lily's biological uncle.
Yikes.
To allow the popular romance to continue without the taboo, Marlin introduced a storyline where Iva learned she had been adopted, resolving the potential biological issue.
Convenient retcon again.
Exactly. A more genuinely controversial story within the family involved Meg Snyder falling in love with Josh Snyder, despite knowing he had raped her sister, Iva.
Wait, what?
While the show attempted to explain Josh's actions and Meg's forgiveness by revealing that Josh had suffered brutal abuse from his father for years, some viewers found this explanation insufficient or problematic and never fully accepted that relationship.
I can see why. That's difficult.
And there was a storyline involving actual incest, albeit not directly within the core Snyder siblings, but connected to Caleb Snyder's past. This involved Angel Lange, played by Alice Haining, who is Caleb Snyder's girlfriend from Chicago, and her father, Henry Lange, played by James Rebhorn.
James Rebhorn, wow.
Angel had an abortion while with Caleb. On the rebound, she married Holden Snyder, and they moved to Europe. When they returned, Angel refused to give Holden a divorce, driven by this deep terror of her father.
Why?
The shocking truth was revealed. Henry had been sexually abusing Angel since she was a child, and the fetus she aborted was his.
Oh my God.
When Caleb discovered this horrific secret, he confronted Henry, who then committed suicide. Caleb was put on trial for Henry's death, but Angel's eventual confession of her father's brutality on the witness stand provided the crucial testimony needed.
That is incredibly dark for daytime.
This storyline, though difficult, showcased the show's willingness to tackle truly dark and challenging themes, connecting them back to the core families.
In the show's later years, a particular storyline about addiction was also highlighted as impactful.
Yeah, the alcoholism storyline for Carly Tenney, played by the phenomenal Maura West in 2009, that's a strong example of the show continuing to address contemporary social issues.
Carly's drinking, right.
Under the stress of her divorce from Jack, her son Parker's marriage, her involvement in the vodka business, Carly's heavy drinking just escalated rapidly. The show depicted her decline realistically frequently drunk, verbally abusive, lying about it, drinking first thing in the morning.
Hitting bottom.
Her addiction led to serious consequences. A DUI arrest, attempting vehicular homicide by trying to run down Craig Montgomery. The storyline culminated in this powerful intervention staged by her family, leading her to enter rehab. It illustrated the devastating impact of addiction.
Very powerful. The material also mentions later dramatic plots like the Alec Wallace murder mystery. Georgia did it, right?
Georgia was the killer, yeah. And the many returns of the villainous James Stenbeck.
Oh, Stenbeck. Couldn't keep him down.
James Stenbeck was a classic soap opera villain, constantly returning from seemingly certain death to wreak havoc, often feuding with John Dixon or other key characters. One of his later major returns involved the twist that he was alive again and had secretly fathered Henry with Audrey Coleman.
Always another secret kid.
He was found by Paul Ryan and made a dramatic re-entry into Oakdale life, revealing he wasn't dead to a stunned Barbara Ryan at Fairwinds. These kinds of dramatic returns and long-running feuds were staples that kept longtime viewers engaged.
Beyond specific character arcs, as the world turns, is credited with some truly groundbreaking firsts in American daytime television, particularly regarding LGBTQ+ representation.
This is an important part of its legacy, showing its continued evolution over its run. In 1988, the show introduced the first gay male character in American daytime, Hank Elliott, played by Brian Starcher.
First one.
What was particularly notable was that Hank was presented as a masculine man before his sexuality was revealed, which challenged existing stereotypes in media portrayals at the time.
No point.
And the writer, Douglas Marland again, made a deliberate choice not to give Hank's off-camera partner AIDS, instead giving the partner the HIV virus, to avoid the then common negative stereotype linking gay characters directly to the disease in a simplistic way. It was a nuanced approach for the time.
That's really thoughtful for 1988. And then, almost 2 decades later, the show was again at the forefront with another major milestone involving a gay male couple.
Yes. In 2007, Luke Snyder, played by Van Hansis, and Noah Mayer, played by Jake Silberman, shared the first gay male kiss on American daytime television.
The Nuke kiss. Huge deal.
Their relationship, known to fans as Nuke, became incredibly popular and groundbreaking. They went on to become the first gay male couple on daytime to fully consummate their relationship on screen in 2009.
Wow.
Their storyline wasn't without intense conflict, though. Noah's father, Colonel Winston Mayer, reacted with extreme violence, shooting Luke on a floating trip in a hate crime, resulting in Luke being temporarily in a wheelchair and Winston going to prison. Despite the drama, the relationship itself was a significant step forward for representation in a traditionally conservative medium.
These instances really highlight the show's willingness to evolve and reflect a more diverse society, even if those steps sometimes generated controversy. With such compelling stories, iconic characters, and groundbreaking moments, it's no wonder ATWT was a breeding ground for talent and garnered significant acclaim over its run.
It was a consistent powerhouse at the Daytime Emmy Awards, both for the show itself and for its individual artists. The show won the prestigious Daytime Emmy for Outstanding Drama Series 4 times.
4 times, yeah.
1987, 1991, 2001, and 2003. It also received Emmys in various other categories like directing, writing, original song, casting throughout the years. Writing wins in the early 2000s, directing wins in the 90s and 2000s.
And the individual actors and writers were recognized repeatedly.
Oh, the list of individual Emmy winners is long and impressive. Larry Brigman won lead actor twice for John Dixon. Martha Byrne, playing Lillian Rose D'Angelo, won for Outstanding Ingenue, that young female lead category, and later for Outstanding Lead Actress.
Double winner.
Benjamin Hendrickson won Supporting Actor as Hal Munson. Jennifer Landon made history winning Outstanding Younger Actress 3 consecutive times for Gwen Norbeck Munson.
3 in a row. That's amazing.
Remarkable achievement. Maura West won lead actress twice for Carly Tenney Snyder, including for that alcoholism storyline we mentioned.
Well deserved.
And Michael Park, who played Jack Snyder, won lead actor twice, notably with one of those wins coming after the show had ended but for material aired before the finale.
Oh, interesting. Other notable Emmy winners included Justin Diaz, Brian Bloom, John Wesley Shipp,
Greg Marks, and in later years, Leslie Kay, Caddy McLean, Julie Pinson. Yes, the depth of recognized talent was considerable across all acting categories.
and the veterans got their due, too.
Absolutely. The show's veterans were honored with Lifetime Achievement Emmys, including Eileen Fulton, Dawn Hastings, and Helen Wagner, all receiving this special recognition in 2004. That year's ceremony was a significant tribute to the show's enduring legacy and its foundational actors.
Beyond the Emmys, the show served as an early launching pad for several actors who went on to major careers outside of daytime.
This is another aspect of its legacy, yeah. Julianne Moore, now an acclaimed Oscar-winning film star,
Huge star.
got her start playing the dual roles of half-sisters Franny and Sabrina Hughes on ATWT. She won a Daytime Emmy for Younger Actress in '88 before making her mark in movies.
Meg Ryan, too, right?
Meg Ryan, known for all those romantic comedies, played Betsy Stewart, a character involved in a major love triangle, and Marisa Tomei, another future Oscar winner,
Marisa Tomei was on ATWT.
played the somewhat ditzy teen Marcy Thompson. Marisa Tomei's character had a memorable, albeit brief, storyline where she accused Bob Hughes of sexual harassment,
Oh, real?
a controversial topic at the time, and later she married a real prince and became Lady Cushing, adding a touch of fairy tale absurdity to her exit.
Married a prince. Okay, then.
Yeah.
The show also received recognition for its forward-thinking storylines in its later years.
Yes, the show was nominated for a Gilead Media Award in 2010, which recognizes fair, accurate, and inclusive representation of the LGBTQ+ community in media. This acknowledged the significance of the Luke and Noah storyline.
Good for them.
And the script for the show's final episode, written by David A. Levinson, was honored with a Writers Guild of America Award for daytime serial writing, proving the quality of the storytelling was recognized right up to the very end.
So after decades of dominating daytime, launching careers, and collecting awards, the inevitable eventually arrived. After a run of nearly 54 years, As the World Turns came to an end.
Like many long-running series, ATWT experienced declining ratings in its later years, eventually losing that top spot it held for so long. The landscape of television changed, daytime viewing habits shifted.
Times change.
The writing was perhaps on the wall when Guiding Light, another Procter & Gamble-produced soap, was canceled in 2009. That left ATWT as P&G's sole remaining soap on CBS.
The last one standing.
Okay.
And then the news broke on December 8, 2009.
CBS announced the cancellation of As the World Turns. Citing low ratings, the network confirmed that the show's nearly 54-year run would conclude the following year. The final scenes were taped on June 23, 2010, at their studios in Brooklyn.
And the final, much-anticipated episode aired on September 17, 2010. The way the finale was structured and the tone it took are interesting when you look at the details.
It opened with Bob Hughes, a character present from the very beginning, packing up his desk at Oakdale Memorial. He was preparing to retire and move to Arizona with Kim.
Perfect symmetry.
This mirroring of Bob's professional life ending, his saying goodbye to the hospital in Oakdale, beautifully reflected the show itself coming to a close and the audience saying goodbye. Unlike the Guiding Light finale, which aired a year prior and featured a big gathering.
Right, the big picnic.
The ATWT finale took a different approach. It visited individual couples and families, showing them in moments of happiness and looking towards the future, providing a sense of peace and continuity rather than a final party.
It sounds like it aimed for a more intimate, reflective conclusion.
Exactly. The material highlights some of these satisfying conclusions. Barbara Ryan found happiness with Henry Coleman. Dusty Donovan and Janet Ciccone were shown happy with their son Lorenzo, and Carly Tenney announced she was pregnant, which meant Lorenzo would have a playmate. Janet's line in that scene, "I think things turned out exactly the way they were supposed to," really captured that feeling of things settling into a good place.
There was also a poignant farewell scene involving the younger generation, wasn't there?
Yes, one of the larger group scenes showed Margot, Tom, Emily, and Susan wishing Casey Hughes and Allison Stewart well as they were leaving Oakdale to head off to school and a new life elsewhere. It was a symbolic passing of the torch, showing the younger generation literally moving beyond Oakdale's borders, reflecting the show itself moving on.
And the final moment of the series was incredibly symbolic, a direct callback to the show's origins.
It was perfect. It was Bob Hughes, after packing his nameplate, looking around his office one last time. His final line was a simple, understated, "Good night."
Good night.
Then the camera panned to an illuminated globe on his desk, which began spinning. That visual harked back directly to the show's original title sequence with the spinning globe and symbolized that while the show about this particular world had ended, the world itself and the potential for new stories kept spinning. It was an emotional and resonant closing image.
Though our information does note one point of critique regarding the finale, specifically concerning a legendary character.
Yes, despite her central role throughout the show's history, literally from the early days, Eileen Fulton's character, Lisa Miller, received an ending that felt less conclusive than others, while she did appear, trading barbs with her longtime nemesis, Lucinda Walsh.
Classic Lisa.
Some felt that such a foundational character deserved a more definitive or perhaps happier send-off, something that truly closed the book on her story. Maybe a hint of a rekindled romance or a phone call from Grant Coleman, something like that.
It seems the writers perhaps focused more on wrapping up the characters who were most prominent in the show's final era, even if it meant giving a less final conclusion to one of its historical pillars.
That appears to be the case. Understandable from a production standpoint, maybe, focusing on current storylines, but perhaps less satisfying for longtime viewers who followed Lisa for decades. In terms of its overall legacy, ATWT holds the distinction of being the last soap opera produced by Procter & Gamble to air.
The end of an era for P&G soaps, and CBS initially replaced it with something very different.
They did. After airing reruns for a few weeks, the network permanently replaced ATWT in its time slot with the talk show The Talk, which premiered on October 18th, 2010.
But the story of soap operas on CBS didn't end there, did it?
No. In a twist that makes that final spinning globe even more meaningful, The Talk eventually concluded, and CBS is now airing a new soap opera in that very same time slot.
A new soap? Really?
This new show is titled Beyond the Gates, and it premiered recently on February 24th, 2025. And adding a wonderful layer of connection back to Oakdale.
Oh!
ATWT alumna Tamara Tooney, who played Jessica Griffin on ATWT for many years, has been cast as a matriarch in this new series.
No way. Jessica Griffin. That's fantastic.
It's a powerful example of how the world of daytime drama, much like that globe, keeps turning, with new stories and familiar faces continuing the tradition.
It really does feel like a full circle moment. Looking back across the show's entire remarkable run, it's also worth reflecting on its technological and broadcast evolution, something we saw glimpses of with the move to color and the JFK moment.
Tracing that technical journey shows how much television itself changed. The show started as a live broadcast, which carried inherent risks and necessitated that particular style of performance. It shifted to being pre-recorded in December 1973.
So no more live interruptions after 73.
Right. This change removed the possibility of live, unplanned interruptions like the Cronkite Bulletin, but also altered the production pace and allowed for more control over the final product.
And visually, the upgrade from black and white to color in 1967 was a significant step for the time.
A major visual leap forward that brought the world of Oakdale to life in a different way for viewers. The show's title sequences also evolved dramatically over the decades, acting as a mini timeline of broadcast graphics and design trends.
The original must have been instantly recognizable for decades. That spinning globe.
It was incredibly iconic. From 1956 to 1981, it featured the classic spinning globe in space, accompanied by the distinctive voice of announcer Dan McCulless stating the show's title. The original organ and piano theme, composed by Charles Paul, remained unchanged for those 25 years.
Wow, 25 years with the same theme.
Provided a real sense of auditory continuity. The sponsor tags were simple, often hand-drawn pictures or product names superimposed over the globe.
Then came the 80s, bringing a new sound and look reflecting the era's technology. Synthesizers.
On November 2nd, 1981, a new synthesized theme song, The World Turns On and On, composed by Jack Courtner, debuted alongside computer-enhanced visuals. The traditional spinning globe was still present, but now smaller and integrated into the letter O of the word world.
Okay, globe in the O.
Dan Regin took over as the announcer in February 1982. It felt more modern, fitting the early computer graphics age.
And another musical and visual shift occurred in the 90s.
Yes. February 3, 1993, the show introduced Jalinda's theme, composed by David Foster. The visuals were created by Castle Bryant Johnson and represented a more artistic approach, showing the letters of the title passing by with illustrations depicting the 4 seasons inside them.
Oh, like seasons turning.
A nod to the show's creator, Erna Phillips's original poem about the world turning through the seasons. The globe dropped into the O at the end. For a brief period, that globe was even used to promote a viewer feedback phone line.
Huh. Gotta get that feedback.
This era's opening was also notable as the last to use traditional scrolling closing credits at the end.
And a bigger departure came in the late 90s, right? Showing the actors.
On November 1st, 1999, both the music and the opening visuals changed again. This was a significant departure from tradition because, for the first time, the opening sequence incorporated cast shots showing both solo and group images of the actors.
Big change for ATWT.
Huge break from the show's long-standing practice of not showing the actors in the opening, focusing purely on the title and theme. The spinning globe was still there, but it was now composed of clips from the show's long history. Also, starting with this opening, As the World Turns had no official announcer.
No announcer.
Station announcers would read the sponsor tags, and sometimes cast members would make special announcements. It felt much less formal.
And the very final opening sequence paid homage to the beginning while still feeling modern.
On June 22, 2009, they debuted their last opening. It brought back a prominent spinning globe, much like the original from '56, but with modern graphics, text effects, and a faded version of the title visible in the background. It was a nice visual bookend to the show's history, returning to that iconic image for its final run.
And even late in its life, the show took tentative steps into the digital age. Soap City.
Yes, in the 2000s, like many soaps, it experimented with the internet. They used the Soap City website for cross-promotion. For instance, in 2001, they had Abigail's Emails, where viewers could read emails written from the perspective of the character Abigail, offering additional insight into her thoughts on the storylines.
Little bonus content.
From 2003 to 2005, the show was even available for repurposing daily on the Soap City website for a small fee, allowing fans to catch up online and early venture into digital distribution, although that specific service was eventually discontinued.
We've journeyed through over 5 decades of drama, innovation, and immense cultural impact with As the World Turns. From its groundbreaking format as one of the first half-hour serials and its decades of ratings dominance, to its iconic multi-generational characters like Nancy and Bob Hughes and the legendary Lisa Miller.
Can't forget Lisa.
And its willingness to tackle complex social issues and even navigate real-world events like the JFK assassination, the show left an indelible mark on television history.
It truly did. It gave us countless memorable storylines that kept millions tuning in daily, launched the careers of major stars who defined film and television for decades.
Julianne Moore, Meg Ryan, Marisa Tomei.
And for generations of viewers, it provided a sense of comfort, connection, and a reliable daily dose of compelling human drama.
As Bob Hughes said in that final poignant moment, good night. But as the camera lingered on that spinning globe, we're reminded that the world and the endless stories within it keep turning, continuing to influence what we see on screen today. After hearing about its long and rich history, what aspect of ATWT's run resonates most with you? For me, it's got to be that incredible sustained dominance in the ratings. 10 million viewers a day for decades is just astounding to think about in today's fragmented media landscape.
I agree. That level of shared cultural experience is remarkable. For me, I think it's the blend of that classic character-driven family drama with the willingness sometimes to push boundaries on social issues and representation, even when it was challenging. That combination is what made it feel both familiar and vital for so long.
Powerful points both. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into As the World Turns. If you enjoyed exploring the history of this classic soap opera, please take a moment right now to like this deep dive, subscribe to our channel or podcast feed so you don't miss future explorations.
It really helps.
And leave us a comment below. Tell us your favorite ATWT memory or character. It truly helps us keep bringing you these explorations into the stories that have shaped our world.